We're joined by Justin Matejcek. He's an Army veteran and founder of Veterans Adventure Group. It's a nonprofit. It's based in Tennessee that takes combat veterans on extreme sports trips across the country to help reacclimate into society. So, Justin, first off, I totally sympathize with this movement. I think it's awesome. I've done one base jump in my life. I have 3,300 skydives. I'm never base jumping again. But hey, tell us a little bit about your organization and how it helps.
Yeah, so Veterans Adventure Group, ultimately our goal is to use extreme sports to restore that teamwork and purpose with veterans. As you know, veterans tend to thrive in these chaotic and extreme environments. And we found that by putting them back in these environments, they really rise to the occasion. And they really, this whole different version of themselves come out where they're very confident and in charge. And a lot of times in the civilian world, you just don't get that atmosphere. And so we use that small team mentality, similar to what we did in the military, where we get back out in these extreme environments and we're forced to rely on our team and our training and our own knowledge to essentially get through and push on to the next challenges.
And this is great, too, because, look, I've obviously had seen some stuff, and I've noticed that when you come back, or at least when I came back, it was this constant pursuit of adrenaline. You can, once you hear that first round snap over your head overseas, there is no coming back to normal from that. I mean, you're constantly surging for that next adrenaline rush and that next challenge. And this is something, though, that is, productive. It's unique, and it brings veterans back together. So talk about when a veteran comes home, what they kind of go through mentally, and how this extreme stuff plays in, even though most people would say, hey, that's crazy. It can't be good for them.
Yeah, there's a lot to that. And, I can kind of talk about my time coming back home, too, just to kind of help segue into what a lot of veterans feel. But, I got back from Afghanistan in 2011, and I was in a college classroom within about 6 months or so from being in country. And it was a really tough transition for me. And it wasn't necessarily about what happened overseas. It was more about what happened when I came back. And, when you're in the military, you're surrounded by, very close team members. You're doing something that matters to you, and you have that purpose. You have that mission. And you get back and you don't have any of that. And for me, there was one moment where it was so rough, where I was refusing to drink alcohol and all that, because that just kind of went down a whole different path. And one night in my misery, I sat down at my kitchen table and I made a list of everything that was bothering me. And I was able to summarize that list into a lack of teamwork and a lack of purpose. And ultimately, I realized that there are so many veterans out there just like me that may not have any kind of medical or mental diagnosis from the VA, but they're still lacking something in their life. And so I would argue a lot of times it's not even the experiences from overseas that really bother us. It's more of coming back to this environment and you don't have that tight-knit team around you anymore. And you want to have that purpose. And a lot of that, I would argue, being part of a team gives you purpose. When you're in a rope team on the side of Mount Rainier, you know that you have to perform, because if you don't, everyone else in that rope team is also at risk. Very similar to being in combat, where you have to rely on that training, the teamwork, and your equipment to get through.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right on that. I've made this point many times before, which is, Bill, Bob, John, Mike, Sarah, whoever goes overseas, deploys with a group, is there for 4, 5, 6 years. They are in charge of 40 people, millions of dollars of equipment, and making life and death decisions almost every day. And then they come back, and because they don't have a college degree, they can't really get a great job. And so they sit there and they stew on the fact that, well, hey, I gotta find a purpose again. And you're absolutely right. This lack of purpose is a huge problem facing veterans, because once you've been at war, folks, you don't look at things the same way. I can tell you firsthand. You need to have that edge. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to redirect mine through. I enjoy physical fitness and things like that, but I still do some of this crazy stuff that you're talking. Talk about some of the events that you do with your group.
Yeah, so we have a lot of different teams, essentially what we call it, that specialize in different areas. So ultimately, our main thing is mountaineering. And that comes from the reason I started this nonprofit in the first place was on my second tour in Afghanistan, my vehicle had an IED and my driver lost his leg. And in that moment, we made a promise that we'd climb Mount Rainier together. And this was literally as the medevac was coming in, we decided we'd climb Mount Rainier together when we got back, And so I got out with a mission of working with veterans, especially wounded ones at this time, and get them in the mountains. And as I started doing this, I got into other activities too, such as skydiving and all that. And I found that tight-knit community again. And so with that, mountaineering is kind of our flagship thing. We do a lot of climbs on Mount Rainier every year. We also do scuba diving, we do caving, we do skydiving, and that goes into actually getting veterans their actual Class A license so they can jump solo. We also do kiteboarding. We even have a drag racing team, and we do rock climbing. We also have an adaptive component that they do ski clinics and all that out in Colorado using like the sleds and all that. And they also do weekend retreats, and they get out on the boats and do wakeboard and all that stuff. So we have a wide array of activities that kind of can meet the veteran where they're at and what their interest is. Like for the drag racing guys, if they would rather just sit around and break wrenches, that's a good option for them.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, if they're looking for something a little bit more intense, we can throw you out of an airplane with a perfectly good parachute and it's on you, So there's a lot of different options. And ultimately our goal is to, again, get veterans back in that environment where their decisions have an effect, whether it be serious injury or life or death. But that, again, veterans always rise to the occasion when we put them back in that environment. So that's kind of our goal.
How can viewers get to your organization? How can they donate? What's your website? How can they reach you?
Yeah, the best way to reach us is honestly through Facebook. It's the most easy and we keep it up to date. So yeah, Veterans Adventure Group on Facebook or Instagram. We also have a website, veteransadventuregroup.org. On the website, there's a donate tab. On the Facebook page, there's also a donate tab. That being said, we're not just looking for monetary donations either. We're also looking for in-service or of-kind donations. We use a lot of equipment, and it would be very helpful getting access to more equipment. It gets used and abused through the activities we do. So yeah, but again, the easiest way to get in contact with us is through our website, veteransadventuregroup.org, or through our Facebook or Instagram page.
Yeah, no, I mean, Justin, this is a fantastic program. I encourage people, there's it right there on the bottom of the screen, veteransadvantagegroup.org. Please go there. Justin, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you having me on.